welcome back to It's a Snake's Life. Today I'm going to talk all about humidity and how to control it. So what is humidity? Well, in a nutshell, humidity is the amount of moisture or water vapour in the air. But there's more to it than that, and I think that learning to understand it better can help in controlling it properly. So as I'm sure you're aware, the weather differs all over the world, and these different areas of the world have different levels of humidity, and you can actually go online and search for the country that your snake originates from and see what the humidity level is right now. You can also check the annual average. So obviously we want to do our best to recreate these conditions inside our enclosures. And in order to measure these humidity levels in our enclosures, we use what's called a hygrometer. You can get an analog hygrometer like this, and this just sticks to the wall inside your enclosure, or you can get a digital one like this, and this is the option I prefer because I feel like it's more reliable and more accurate. And with this one you can place the probe anywhere inside the enclosure, and then you can have your display unit wherever you want to put it. So you could stick it to the front of the enclosure, or you could put it on the top. On your hygrometer you're going to see a reading anywhere from 0 to 100%. So what we're actually measuring here is relative humidity. So the overall amount of moisture in the air is referred to as absolute humidity. It's expressed as grams of moisture per cubic metre of air. Relative humidity is the overall amount of moisture in the air relative to temperature. It doesn't just refer to the overall amount of moisture in the air, but how much moisture there is compared to how much moisture there could possibly be at the current temperature. This is then expressed as a percentage. So for example, if the air is currently holding half the amount of moisture that it's capable of holding at that temperature, then we have a reading of 50% humidity. So let's break it down and try and simplify it. So the overall humidity level in the air is referred to as absolute humidity. And we can think of this glass as the air, and the water inside is the absolute humidity. So this stays the same regardless of temperature. However, when we measure relative humidity, we need to take temperature into account. So warm air is capable of holding a higher amount of moisture than cool air. So I've tried to show this here by using a larger bowl to represent warm air and a smaller bowl to represent cool air. So if we take the absolute humidity and we add it to warm air, and I've done a little chart here just to represent the percentage. So you can see there that we're between 25 and 50%. So if we take that exact same absolute humidity again and we add it to cool air, and try not to spill it everywhere, then you see we are now sitting on 50%. So this bowl is capable of holding more water than this bowl. So that means that it is now roughly about 40% full, whereas this bowl is around 50% full, even though we've added exactly the same amount of water to both bowls. So this is the same of relative humidity. You've got one bowl representing a nice warm day and another bowl representing a cool day. So the overall moisture in the air is exactly the same on both days. But because the warm day is capable of holding more moisture, the relative humidity is only around 40%. And because the cool day is capable of holding less moisture, the relative humidity is around 50%. So if you have your heating turned off at night, or you have the temperature set to drop at night, then you might notice a difference in the humidity level. You'll see that the humidity level will go up slightly during these cooler periods. In fact, you can actually see this if you have a large enough enclosure and have a hygrometer at either end. You will see a slight difference in the humidity levels from your warm end and your cool end. So why is humidity important? So having the right humidity levels is important because each species of snake has evolved to live in certain parts of the world in certain conditions. If humidity levels are wrong, then our snakes can become dehydrated, they can get stuck in shed, they can have respiratory problems, and snakes that are living in actual wet conditions can be at risk of scale rot. So humidity levels are important. So how do we control the humidity levels in our enclosure? So the main things that are going to affect the humidity level inside your enclosure are temperature, substrate, water bowl, ventilation, and of course the humidity in your house. So temperature is one I've already mentioned. The warmer the air, the lower the humidity, and vice versa. Substrate, if you don't know, is what we use on the floor of the enclosure, so aspen, cocoa fibre, newspaper, etc. And a dry substrate like aspen or newspaper isn't going to affect the humidity, but a substrate that's holding moisture is going to release some of that moisture into the air and therefore raise the humidity level. The size of water bowl can affect humidity. Depth doesn't necessarily make a difference, but a larger surface area of water allows more water to evaporate at once, so use a wider bowl for higher humidity setups. Then there's ventilation and the humidity inside your house, which kind of go together. So the amount of ventilation dictates how much of that water vapour can escape the enclosure and be replaced with drier air. So if you want to keep a more humid setup, then you'll need minimal ventilation. Obviously, changing ventilation won't work alone though. You can't trap in all that water vapour if there's none there to start with. On the flip side, lots of ventilation can help with keeping a drier setup, but obviously this can depend on how humid the air is in your house. So if you were wanting to keep a dry setup, you might choose to have a drier substrate like aspen for instance, a smaller water bowl and lots of ventilation. And if things are still too humid due to the levels in your house, you can invest in a dehumidifier for whatever room your snakes are in. If you're wanting to keep a humid setup, then you might choose a substrate that can hold and release moisture. So cocoa fibre, cypress mulch, etc. Have a larger water bowl and limit the amount of ventilation. Your substrate will probably dry out after a while, and so what you can do is just add a layer of fresh over the top of your existing substrate and then mix it in. Or you can spray down your substrate. But when I say spray down your substrate, it doesn't mean soaking it every day and leaving it. If you do that, then your snake's most probably going to get scale rot from living in wet conditions. We don't want it to be wet, we just want it to be holding moisture. The idea is that the moisture in the substrate will slowly evaporate into the air and therefore keep a higher humidity level inside the enclosure. So that is my video all about humidity. I hope it was helpful to you. If you made it this far, then I really do appreciate it. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.